start. First of all, thank you.
Hi there.
Hey, Michael, give me one moment. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So thank you everyone for joining us, the African American Marketing Association today. This is our first meeting of the year, so I'm so excited. There's a lot of things going on that I want to give you all of the good information. So first, AMA, we say AMA for short. We were founded February 2019. So this is our 3-year anniversary. And the whole mission is to galvanize Black marketers across the world in order for us to provide the resources and opportunities that they need to grow their career or business. As you know, marketing is very broad. There's a lot to cover, but we do our best to kind of give you what you need here. So first, special shout out to our leading sponsors, Onward Search, their creative staffing agency, and Dragonfly Editorial, which is a writing and editorial service. So if you're looking for a job, I'll be glad to connect you with our point of contact at Onward Search. And of course, if you need writing services, we have Dragonfly Editorial. So for a few announcements, I'm really excited about the things we have lined up. Last year, we released our top 50 Black marketers list, and we are going to run it back and do it again. So if you haven't already, make sure you nominate yourself, you nominate a friend, a peer as a Black marketer. That way we can acknowledge them this year. And I'm going to drop these links in the chat pretty soon. We also have our own career board. So if you're on the move, please visit our job board. We have nationwide jobs, hybrid, work from home, great titles, great salaries. So once again, if you're on the move, please look at that. And every now and then we'll put some RFPs on there for those business owners. If you haven't already, tune into the Marketing for the Culture podcast. We release a new episode every week. We have our podcast host, CL, who definitely holds it down. Thank you for that. And following that, AMA, we are partnering with the Black Marketers Coalition for the Marketing for the Culture Summit. So save the date. We made that announcement. It will be Thursday, May 12th in Atlanta, Georgia. And Sequoia's, she's hiding right now, but she's on the line. And we will be partnering with her organization on that. Let's see, what else? All right, I think got the announcements out. Give me one moment here. All right. And the last thing is membership is free, right? So if you're not a member already, membership is free. We made it free since the pandemic. If you go to aa-ma.org/membership, you can sign up to be a member, and then you'll have all of the latest news as to what is going on with us. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to bring Michael on. Let me read his bio. Let me actually record this. All right. So today's special guest is Michael Maslansky. He is the CEO of Maslansky & Partners, an Omnicom agency. Since writing The Language of Trust in 2010, Michael has become one of the leading experts on reputation and crisis communications in the world. He has served as a senior advisor to Wells Fargo, Procter & Gamble, Toyota, Bank of America, PepsiCo, Johnson & Johnson, and the list goes on and on. He has helped so many industry associations of financial services, energy, and personal care navigate major industry transformation crises. Michael, Welcome to the African American Marketing Association. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Michelle. Thank you for having me. Hopefully, everyone can hear me okay. You can hear me all right? Super. Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. Give me a chance to talk about a topic that I'm really passionate about, and to get a chance to chat, see some of you. As I go through, I know that Michelle, when you talked about this with Bryant on my team, the goal was to make it kind of informal. I have some thoughts to share. I'm in about 3/4 technical meltdown right now. I'm out of the office, but we're gonna make do, and certainly can do lots of Q&A. I had a couple of slides that I wanted to share, but I'll riff a bit instead and just welcome people. If anyone's got questions as I go, by all means, jump in.
Okay. Why don't you give us a career snapshot of how you got
Yeah.
started and what your firm does?
Sure. So I'll talk a little bit about what we do first, and then how I got here, because it's a long and winding road. So our firm is what we call a language strategy firm, and we say that we invented language strategy, which is really this idea that every time you open your mouth, whether it's in a personal context or certainly in a business context, and absolutely in a marketing context, the words that you choose can help you or they can hurt you. Every word is a choice, and we help you choose wisely. And we do that through a deep understanding of behavioral science, kind of how humans think, how we react to different messages and different approaches to communication. We do it through a lot of market research. So we have a number of researchers on our team who are really trying to understand, in a specific situation, how might different approaches to communication impact the effectiveness of a message. And then we've got communicators, linguists, writers, marketers, strategists on our team, who are then trying to take the insights that we come up with in research and translate them into communication strategy, marketing strategy, and different outcomes that often then go to our partners, who are advertising agencies or other communication firms, and they might ultimately bring it to life. And so you used a couple of examples from my bio just to give you a sense. So we do a fair amount of work on the crisis side, where we come in, and obviously if you're a company in crisis, then people are going to be really skeptical of what you have to say and how you communicate. It's really sensitive. You got to be really careful of how you describe the points that you're trying to make. And so we help organizations become smarter about how to respond in those situations. But on the marketing side, there are a lot of really interesting, sometimes more nuanced challenges that companies face. Let's say you're the third player in a market. You're not the market leader. You're not the second person in the market. You're the third, let's say in financial services, where the products aren't that different. And you need a way to stand out. We're often there to help kind of come up with insights and provide messaging, provide the words and phrases that may help you reframe a conversation and stand out in the marketplace. So I started in politics. My first job out of university was actually on a presidential campaign, now in what seems like a million years ago, for Ross Perot, if anyone remembers him. He was a wild, independent guy who was shaking up the political world. And so I started there, and then the firm that I was a part of was really a political consulting firm, did straight polling. My path was kind of circuitous from there. I became a lawyer. I did mergers and acquisitions law for a couple of years, and then at the height of the dot-com boom in 1999, had an opportunity that I was totally unqualified for to hook up with somebody that I was introduced to, and kind of try and create an internet company. And we managed to survive through the dot-com crisis. And I did that for a couple of years before ultimately coming back to this industry and this space, and starting to build this business in the kind of market research and communication space. And I've been here since, I've been doing this since 2003.
Okay, so what led to your book, The Language of Trust?
Yeah, so it's the point at which I wrote the book, which was after the financial crisis in 2008, 2009, it was, for me, the second time that I had actually seen this big shift in the world. The first one was in the dot-com crisis, where all of our assumptions about what worked in the world kind of got turned on their head, right? The market was going up, then it came down. In the financial crisis, home prices were going up, then they were coming down, and the companies that were the biggest names before each crisis came tumbling down, and for many of them, some of them, for good reasons, went out of business. Others got tainted with a negative brush, right? So it could be like every bank was considered to be partially responsible or significantly responsible for their role in the financial crisis. If they wanted to even talk about the good things that they were doing, they had a lot of trouble. People did not trust them, and often for good reason. And the challenge that we were often asked to help address was, okay, so whether or not you've done something wrong, but even if you have, how do you recover from that? How do you rebuild trust after it's been broken? How do you find ways to connect when somebody doesn't trust you immediately? You walk into a situation and you need to build trust quickly. What are the tools that you can use to do that? We saw a lot of that in our research, and I thought that it was an important moment to start talking about it. I actually, in the book, I talked about it being the post-trust era, that we were entering this time where nobody gets the benefit of the doubt anymore. And if that was true in 2010, it is, true by an order of magnitude now. I often ask the question of how often, when you pick up the newspaper and you read a headline about a company and it's a negative headline, are you kind of predisposed to believe whatever it is that company is being accused of before knowing the facts or before knowing anything? And I think most people are pretty likely to believe those things. How often do you make kind of snap judgments about people or institutions, or have them made about you, and all of a sudden you have to kind of overcome skepticism, or they have to overcome skepticism. And in all of those cases, there's an element of trust and benefit of the doubt. And I think how you approach your communication is so important in those situations. And so that's really what the book is focused on.
So if we fast forward to today, because in your book you said there is the trust died in America, right? So if we consider the pandemic, the politics, the racial, social justice, just diverse communities all together, do you think America is going to continue to go through a cycle of trust?
So I wish I had an optimistic answer. I think in some areas there are good reasons for optimism. I think my general starting point is that we're in a world where, I don't know if how many of you will be familiar with this, but if you go to an amusement park and they've got those rides where you sit in the chair and the chairs are connected with chains and it starts to spin and you go swinging out to the sides because of the centrifugal force. And to me, a lot of the trends that we're facing are really a lot like that ride, where the trends kind of reinforce themselves and push everybody out to the edges. You've got a world that we operate in, and we're seeing it particularly in the pandemic, where, for I think most people, certainly many people, life is challenging, and people feel like they are dislocated, like they don't have their people or the things that they think should be right in the world are not. And so when you're that way, it's natural to try and find communities that support you, that are like you, that speak the same language, that believe a lot of the same things. And so we end up in these tribes. And when you're in these tribes, you get this kind of mutually reinforcing. You hear a lot about the bubbles that people live in, and those bubbles make whatever belief you have even stronger. And if those bubbles are separated from other people, then you become you have very different views, and so you become more polarized, and it kind of reinforces itself. And so, I think the question that I trying to ask is, if that's where the trends are going, what do you do to break that down? How is it that you can, break the cycle? And I think, there are moments like what happened with George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement that kind of force many, definitely not all, but force many to take a look outside their bubble and try and reevaluate things. And I think those are, whether they look and feel it at the time, are often really important to kind of changing the trends and shifting the way people think.
I mean, you work with some of not even our favorite brands, just our daily brands, right? Like we're supporting these companies one way or another. And we look at these organizations as huge companies, Fortune 100 companies, where language is so granular. Like, how do you manage that? Especially, we'll just say this crazy racial climate, especially with Black History Month and the mishap with Bath and Body Works earlier this week. Do you feel like you have to do a lot of persuasiveness when it comes to your clients and the importance of language strategy?
Yeah, well, so first, I try and come to this topic with as much humility as I can bring. There are things that I think I've learned along the way in doing a lot of research on messaging and trying to empathize with different audiences based on the challenges that I'm trying to address on behalf of clients. And I think I've been fortunate to learn a lot. And then, I know that there's a lot that I don't know. And it's a challenging time for so many reasons, even for organizations that want to do the right thing, right? So I think I'd say we engage with a lot of amazing organizations, and the people inside those organizations tend to fall into a couple of different buckets. There are people who are, there's always going to be a group of rejectors of kind of the need for engaging differently in the face of even what we've seen. And they're on one end of the spectrum. And then you've got, people on the other end of the spectrum that are eager and ready and I think, want to run fast. And then you have the people in kind of the broad middle who are trying to make sense of what is, I think, a really complex subject. And I'll just take, one of the interesting pieces of data that I've seen recently is about the term Latinx, where, you've got communities of color, the Latinx community, whether you call it that or you call it Hispanic, or you call it Latino or Latina. And there is no consensus, at least from what the data says, about how people in that group, what they want to be called, how they would refer to themselves. And so, if you're in an organization, if you're at a company, and they need to find a term to communicate with either their employee population or their customer population, it's a very dangerous situation to walk into, even if you have the best of intent. And so, I think part of it is recognizing that there are not simple or easy answers, and also recognizing that you have to do a lot of explaining what it is that you're trying to accomplish and why before you even get to the kind of how you will communicate something in particular.
Yeah, I definitely agree. That's the topic that I've been following closely. And, being in Texas, having these personal conversations, it's, some are like, I'm a Mexican, or, because my parents are from Mexico. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely an interesting topic. I do want to pivot a little bit. Now the trending topic is the metaverse, right? So do you think with the metaverse and just Web 3.0, do you think it's going to change how we do marketing and advertising campaigns?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure I could tell you how, but without question, I think it will. Depending on what the metaverse ultimately becomes. I think it's probably easier to anticipate how it might play out in the metaverse than what Web 3.0 might or might not look like. But we are the metaverse seems to create all of these different opportunities for where you market to people. If it's in the virtual world, if it's different ways of marketing in the real world, of how you connect the two, and it brings up all of these different questions about how brands can build authenticity and build trust when you're operating in a world where you can manipulate kind of everything about your how you're represented and how you kind of present yourself to the world. But it is, I think if we're kind of broadly speaking about marketing and marketing opportunities, so many of the jobs, I don't know what jobs many of you have on the call, but there are so many jobs that exist today that did not exist before the internet. And the metaverse, I would imagine, is going to create another universe, and probably, I guess, pun intended, of different jobs to do. And then Web 3.0 as well. Like, they're just, it creates lots of opportunities for people to get involved and for new jobs to be created, even though many will also go away.
That's tough. Yeah. I guess within your firm, what do you consider some job titles and skill sets important with the work that you do?
Yeah. Well, so first, we're a firm of about 65 people right now, primarily in New York. We've got some people spread around the country in different places, and have been fortunate to be growing a lot over the last now a good number of years, and expanding the different things that we do. And there are certain functions that we focus on, and then there are certain skill sets that I think are broadly applicable to the jobs that we look for, and I think broadly applicable in the world that we live in today, that I would point to. So the kinds of people that we recruit the most, what we call language strategists, who are the consultants within our business. We're looking for people who are really they look at communication as a puzzle. Every time that, whether it's a marketing campaign or a communication effort, that they are trying to unlock, what is it about you, if you're my audience, that you're thinking that you could misinterpret, that the way that you could react, that will that if I empathize with you, if I can understand, that I can communicate with you better. Anybody who likes that puzzle, who really wants to dig into what is it about human behavior, what is it about experience, what is it about kind of psychology in general that may affect that, and then once I learn that, how can I kind of use a clever shift in how I communicate about things. Those are the people. We say our tagline is, it's not what you say, it's what they hear. And so what we're always trying to figure out is, how are you going to hear? Like, as you're sitting here looking at me, I don't look like you. I come from outside. You don't know me. What can I do to kind of make it more likely that you'll give me a fair listen? That you'll actually kind of focus on the things that I'm talking about. It's a puzzle. Like, it's a really interesting puzzle every day in the work that we do, and it's true whether we're trying to communicate about a new drug, or we're trying to talk about a financial services product, or we're trying to talk about a consumer product. It's all a puzzle. So we look for people who like that, who are really good writers, who are good strategic thinkers, and then we look for people, and this is across all the functions, whether you're in our talent function or finance, or you're doing research and writing, and that is that I think, and I do a lot of coaching with our young talent and other people outside the organization. And I think one of the most important qualities that people need to have today is an agile mindset. Is just as you want to develop expertise in something, it's also really important to recognize that needs to be a step onto something else that you want to go become strong in, because nothing stays the same, and people who are not constantly focused on growing, on expanding what they know, how they think, are, I think, in a really challenging position in this world that we operate in, because it feels like it used to be a whole lot easier than it is now. Where there's a lot of competition, things are changing really rapidly, and so that agile mindset is really important.
I like that. With that being said, what advice do you have to those that are looking to build an agency or just a business in general?
Yeah, so I have a really strong belief that we are operating at a time where people want specialists. People want deep, focused expertise as opposed to broad and shallow expertise. So we've picked this space that nobody else occupies right now in quite the way that we do, called language strategy. And it has, pros and cons to being a category of one. But we know that when people ask us what we do that is different from everybody else, why should they hire us? I hopefully can do a pretty good job of explaining exactly what makes us different. And if you're an agency and you don't have a clear sense of why they should hire you, what makes you different, then I think in general it's much harder to compete. So I'm a big fan of specialization, and I think beyond that, I think people are at the heart of certainly of the agency world. If you have one good person who really is the right, has the right skills and the right mindset, they will outperform a handful of the wrong people. And so who you hire, how you invest in their development. Like, so we made a decision a while back. We used to hire a lot of people and work them really hard. We still work really hard, but we used to work them really hard. And if they could keep up, then they hung around. But we kind of burned through a fair number of people. And we made a decision a while back that our success is going to be built on training and developing and coaching and giving feedback to our team, and hoping that that our success will be built on their success, and not at the expense of that. And I think for any agency, I'd say that's really critical.
Nuggets on top of nuggets. All right. So does anyone have any questions? Because I have one last good question, and you might, if you think you can outdo me, this is the time. One moment. You got it?
Yeah, I got it. I manage social media for a trade association with over 17,000 members. How can my org build trust on platforms where we may only have a few seconds to connect with our members? Yeah, so it's funny. I'm working with a couple of really big associations now, and we're trying to tackle some similar things. So I think the first thing that I would say is to ask the question of, as you think about the messages that you're using, are they the things that the association wants to communicate, or are they the things that you've learned that the membership wants to learn about? And I say that obviously not knowing what the association is, but so often when we engage with clients, we recognize that they have certain things that they really think are important, and they haven't taken the time to step back and say, all right, but does our audience really think that this is important? And if they do, or whether or not they do, how do I frame it in a way that's going to resonate? One of the other things that I often say is that some messages feel good for the client, for the organization. Some messages work. They're usually not the same. And so, the first thing is to really kind of give some deep thought into who your membership is. What is it that matters to them? And then once you have a sense of that, how do you connect your message to them? So that's, the first thing. Social media and trying to get people's attention is really challenging. I think the second thing I would say is repetition. I had nothing to do with it, but the Geico campaign I always hold up as a great example of repetition that doesn't sound repetitive, right? You think about all of the different executions that they have done over the years. They've never changed their message once, right? It is 15 minutes will save you 15% with Geico, but I'm going to make it funny in a whole host of different ways. And so I think that that's true. When you get your message out, what is the one message? Because you're only going to get one message across to your audience, unless you got a lot of money to put behind it. How do you define that message, bring it to life in different ways, and repeat, repeat, repeat? So I think there was another one. Let's see. How often do you see the language of trust intentionally misused? Wait, sorry, I lost the scroll there. Hold on. Brands clearly trying to communicate one thing when they don't operate in that same way. Ways to identify that in marketing and branding. Yeah, so it's a great question. It is when I kind of started out in this business and we decided that we were going to focus on messaging and framing, there were kind of always been asked questions about, is it just manipulation? And, and how do you tell the difference between what's real and what's not? I think, the first thing is, as I said earlier, in a somewhat different context, is, every time any company, any communicator, any person that you engage with opens their mouth, they're making a choice in the words that they use, and they can choose to base their message in something that they believe is true and accurate, or they can be intentionally deceitful. But it's a choice. And then even if you want to be accurate, there are many different ways to communicate what you believe to be the truth. And so I think there are, when you think about big companies intentionally kind of misusing the language of trust, I think there's a question of kind of like, what does that mean? Are they intentionally trying to mislead and manipulate people in a kind of a negative way? I think it's relatively rare. Are they trying to, kind of get the most that they can out of the best story that they can tell? Absolutely. And that line is always challenging to find. And what I think is true and can give you a statistic about, you may think is false and can give me a statistic about. And so the line is challenging. And I think, in terms of ways to identify it in marketing and branding, I think it's why we're all skeptical. I think the default position is don't assume that it's true. Kind of assume that anyone who is marketing anything, I don't care what it is, you're going to focus on the things that tell your story the best, and you're probably going to leave certain things out. Doesn't mean that you're not telling the truth, but we don't all always tell the whole truth in any part of our lives. It's just like, right? It's not the way that we communicate. And so I think there's always a sense of like, okay, so what aren't you saying? How much should I go try and identify what that is? And so it's interesting. I'll just tell you, one of the pieces of research that we did a little while back was we asked people whether, not knowing anything about the product, if you had to choose between a product that was new and improved or one that worked as directed, right? So two kind of pretty like enduring marketing claims. What would you choose? And I don't know what you all would choose. 80% of the population chose works as directed. Because I think, we've heard this in a lot of our research, is that when you hear new and improved, there's a greater skepticism about, well, is it really new and improved? Like how much improved? And that the idea that somebody makes a promise and then delivers on that promise is one of the most powerful things that you can do in marketing. And so we often, talk about, I'll give you another example. We're working on a campaign for an electric company a long time ago. and they actually, sorry, not that long a time ago, but they wanted to do this campaign where they said, look, we care so much about our customers, we just want to tell them. And so the campaign was going to be called We Care. Now, I don't know who your electric company is, but maybe you think that they care about you in a genuine way. Maybe you don't. You're in Texas. Your relationship with your electric company may be somewhat fraught at this point. But we said, look, instead of saying we care, make the campaign "Let us show you how we care," and use examples of caring instead of asking people to believe you and take it on faith. And so a lot of what we try and do is say, all right, how do we find the right message and then support it with the right proof points or actions, so that you're not taking us on faith, because I think people in general do not want to take brands a whole lot on faith these days.
Very interesting. Michael, did you see Sam's question?
I'm having a little trouble scrolling. Would you mind reading it for me? I'm having a little trouble finding it now.
Sure. Well,
there we go. I got it. What was the biggest lesson mistake you learned on your marketing? That became the person I am today. So there are so many. I'll give you two that come to mind. Well, I'll give you three that come to mind. First one was that my first job as a leader or manager was during the .com era. As I told you, .com boom turned to bust, and I had to let go of a lot of people that were on our team. And then I had a partner a while back in this business, and he left the business, and I had to let a lot of people go. And a lesson that I took away from it was that I never wanted to ever have to do that again. And so it has informed a lot of how I kind of lead and grow the business, of not getting out too far over my skis, so that I can kind of make sure that I can take care of the people that I brought onto the team. Second thing happened in the financial crisis. I was working for an industry association in the financial services business, and I was convinced that I found the answer to help them rebuild trust after the financial crisis. And I made a set of recommendations that required a level of vulnerability that was, frankly, in retrospect, it was too much to ask of a bunch of industry CEOs. And I had the right answer, but I didn't have an answer that was a plausible or feasible answer. It was never going to be one that my client was going to accept. And I learned this lesson that we're in a client service business, or we're always going to be serving somebody, and that the best answer to give is not always the best answer. It's the best acceptable answer, or the best answer that you can kind of advocate and get people to accept. If they won't accept it, it doesn't matter if it's like theoretically the right answer. And so it was a big lesson for me. And the last lesson I'll give you, which is more on the people side again, in terms of building an agency, is I have a lot of love for my team, and I think I have a genuine interest in their career success. There was a period in time where I built the future plans for the business around a group of people, and for that group of people, it was time for them to move on for whatever reason. I'm still close with almost all of them, but I made the mistake of making my kind of future plans based on them. And so now I've kind of learned that I want to build people. I'm really fortunate that I have a team of people who've stuck with me for a really long time. But I also have to think about the business and how we survive and thrive, even if it's their time to go move to someplace else.
Yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate it. So I want to respect your time. The last question I have for you, what is your favorite Biggie Small song?
Oh, Hypnotize.
Okay.
Juicy
Okay.
maybe second, big, but I like, I'm not going deep into the archives, but my ringtone is actually a litmus test. So my ringtone is from Hypnotize. It's to the riff, and it's just it's a fun way for and I see Chris from my team is on here. She knows you hear it, and you like, depending on what client you're with, like half the room will nod awareness and half will have no idea. And it's just it's funny. It's great.
I love it. I love it. Michael, once again, thank you so much for your contribution. I know there's personal or professional things that I'm going through, and your advice is resonating with me. So I look forward to listening to this. Of course, we're going to share it with our members on our network. So once again, thank you, and I look forward to following your success.
Great. Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. And really, I enjoy engaging with people as they're dealing with career questions. And so reach out if you want. If you're interested in what we do, reach out as well. Can tell you more about it, seriously. And but just appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit. And thanks for your really thoughtful questions. And hope everybody enjoyed this.
Yeah, of course.
And thanks, Bryant, who just chimed in, who was really on my team responsible for making this happen.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much. All right, everyone. So hope you enjoyed The Language of Trust with Michael Maslansky. Expect more from AMA this year. We have a lot in store. Currently working on our next event. So let me know, actually, if you would be interested in a LinkedIn workshop, a LinkedIn profile workshop. And do you enjoy doing a lunch and learn? Yes, you are welcome, Christy. Crystal, I'm sorry. Do you prefer a lunch and learn, something between 11:30 a.m. and 1 p.m.? Or do you prefer stuff like this in the evening after hours? So let me know in the comments, or if you want to get on camera, you can do that. Evenings, lunch and learn. I put it in our Facebook group, and the votes continue to be divided. It's like 50-50. Oh, okay. All right. Evenings, lunch and learn, either works. All right. Okay. Before I let you go, does anyone have any questions regarding the African American Marketing Association? Yeah, it's definitely 50-50. Well, stay tuned. We'll be dropping that event flyer probably within the next week or so. Right now, the anticipated day is March 2nd. And if no one has any questions, once again, thank you for joining us. I hope everyone has a great night.